Pokemon Journeys episode 108, titled Lucario and Greninja, the Aura of Fate, is airing this week. A lot of us have incredibly high expectations for this episode. Ash's Greninja is returning for the first time in 6 years, and the way he's returning, by potentially training Lucario and helping to guide Ash and Lucario through their Aura bond, has an absolute boatload of potential. So for that reason, so many of us are super optimistic that the Pokemon Journeys writers will pull off an incredible episode. We all know the amazing potential that this episode has. We all know how phenomenal it could be if it's done right. But then, out of curiosity, I started thinking about the exact opposite. What is the worst possible outcome? What is the worst way that this episode could go? What would be my biggest nightmare for this highly anticipated Greninja return? Before I talk about it though, please understand, I do not actually think that this will happen. I have a lot of faith in the writers of Pokemon Journeys, especially after the Serena episode. So I am super optimistic about Greninja's episode too. I just thought that the possible worst outcome as a topic to discuss in this video would be a bit of fun. It's just a laugh to talk about even if it doesn't happen. So let's talk about it. I made a video recently about all the links between Aura and the Bond phenomenon. You should definitely check out that video if you haven't already, using the card at the top right of the screen, since that video will give this video a little bit more context. But otherwise, I'll briefly summarise what I said in that video. Aura and the Bond phenomenon have a ton of similarities and connections. They look similar visually with blue energy flow, they allow the trainer and the Pokemon to strengthen each other's attacks, to communicate without using words, to see through each other's eyes, and generally they're both heavily linked to the bond between humans and Pokemon. So all of these similarities really makes me think that Aura and the Bond phenomenon are connected. Maybe Aura is a part of the Bond phenomenon, or maybe Aura causes the Bond phenomenon. That's why Lucario and Greninja have similar abilities, and why both Lucario and Greninja are the focus of this upcoming episode. So as we know, Ash and Greninja could sense the negative roots that Team Flare left behind, and the reason that I think they could sense them, even when Zygarde couldn't, is because of the role of Aura through the Bond phenomenon. Aura allows Aura wielders to sense the aura of other living beings. The negative roots from Team Flare are made up of powerful negative emotional energy, so it makes complete sense that Ash and Greninja can sense the aura of those roots. So I think Lucario and Greninja will be linked in that way too. They'll both be able to sense and destroy the negative roots, because obviously they can both sense the aura of the negative roots. We know that the negative roots are still an issue plaguing Kalos, so Greninja is still active in his duty to destroy them all. And now that it's a real possibility that Lucario could also sense the negative roots, that could be huge. Lucario is the Aura Pokemon. It literally has the strongest aura and the most control of its aura out of any Pokemon ever. So wouldn't Lucario be the perfect ally for Greninja in defeating all of the negative roots and protecting Kalos? Like I said, Lucario's aura is overwhelmingly powerful, so imagine how great Lucario would be at finding and destroying those negative roots with Greninja. So I personally think that episode 108 will unite Ash, Greninja and Lucario and establish the similarities and the links, and thus also establish that Aura can be used to find the negative roots. I think all of that will happen for sure in episode 108. But now, here is where the path diverts between the most incredible Greninja return ever and the most dreadful Greninja return ever. First off, let's talk about the possible best case scenario. So, after episode 108 sets up the links between the Bond phenomenon and Aura, and how both Greninja and Lucario can sense the negative roots, we could then get a future episode, maybe towards the end of Pokemon Journeys, where Ash, Lucario and Greninja unite and join forces, using their combined Aura powers to discover the true source of the negative energy and the source of the negative roots. Ash, Lucario, and Greninja can then destroy that source of the negative roots, thereby destroying all of the negative roots, plaguing Kalos, and finally ending the threat that Kalos and its people face. And then Greninja's duty will be complete at long last. Greninja can finally rejoin Ash, whether that's for the World Coronation series, or just to go to Oak's lab with the rest of Ash's other Pokemon. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. All that matters is that Ash, Greninja, and Lucario will pull it off and destroy the source of the negative roots. So for me, if episode 108 can set that up for a future episode, then I think that would be the best Greninja return ever. So now that we've spoken about the best possible outcome of Greninja's return, what about the exact opposite? What is the worst case scenario? What is the worst way that Greninja's return can go? Well, for me, it's incredibly simple and incredibly scary. So episode 108 would still set up what I said before about how Lucario's aura can also find the negative roots too. But then, rather than this episode being used to set up a future episode where Ash, Greninja, and Lucario work together and destroy the source of the negative roots, it could instead be used to set up something much, much, much worse. Something like Ash releasing Lucario. I know the idea is terrifying. So real quick, let's take it back a little bit. Back to when Greninja was released at the end of the X and Y series. From a writing perspective, a lot of fans believe that Greninja was released because of how special and unique the bond phenomenon was. Greninja's bond phenomenon with Ash was so strong and beloved and so unlike anything we had ever seen before. It was the biggest focus we have ever had on the power of the bond between Ash and one of his Pokemon. And narratively speaking too, the bond between Ash and Greninja was 1 in a million. It was so special and so rare, and both Ash and Greninja were waiting for each other for their entire lives. So if Ash was to just leave Greninja behind at Oak's lab at the end of X and Y, that would have felt incredibly strange. Ash and Greninja went through so much for their incredible bond phenomenon, and it would have been so weird for Ash to just leave Greninja behind for no reason. So that is a big possibility for the reason why the writers made Ash release Greninja. To save them from having to somehow find a justification for Ash to disregard his bond with Greninja by leaving Greninja at the lab. So what if the same holds true for Lucario too? Ash and Lucario have an incredible, strong, and developing aura bond with each other. And aura is possibly even deeper than the bond phenomenon is, because aura is an integral part of both Ash and Lucario's innate characters. Ash and Lucario were spiritually made for each other. They are truly connected by the power of their shared aura. The aura bond between Ash and Lucario is so strong and so special that it would be incredibly weird for Ash to just leave Lucario behind at the lab at the end of Pokemon Journeys, while he goes on another journey himself. It would feel like an exact repeat of the issue that Ash and Greninja faced at the end of the X and Y series. So maybe the writers will do what they did with Greninja, eradicate the issue by making Ash release Lucario. And worryingly, episode 108 could be the perfect setup to do that. If episode 108 establishes that Lucario can sense the negative roots in Kalos, just like Greninja can, then that could lead us down a very dark path. What if at the end of Pokemon Journeys, Ash releases Lucario so it can use its aura powers and help Greninja with protecting Kalos by destroying the negative roots and trying to find the source of the negative roots? This could be how the writers write Lucario out of the show, just like they did with Greninja. They're establishing a mentor bond between Greninja and Lucario in this upcoming episode, and they're establishing that Lucario and Greninja have a lot of powers in common. So this could be how Lucario leaves at the end of the series. Ash releases Lucario, just like he did with Greninja. Lucario and Greninja will combine their powers to continue saving Carlos together. And so, to me personally, that is the worst way that Greninja's return could go. Like I said before, I really don't think this is gonna happen. I think realistically we'll get a future episode near the end of Journeys showing Ash, Lucario and Greninja joining together and destroying the source of the negative roots, and thus freeing Greninja from his duty. But there is always a very slim possibility that this could be used to write Lucario out of the show, just like it did with Greninja. I don't want it to happen, and I'm confident that it won't, but if it did, that would definitely be the worst way for Greninja to return. Greninja returning to set up Lucario being released in the future. Let me know in the comments below what you think the worst possible Greninja return could be. And please note, this video really was not about pessimism. I am so optimistic for Greninja returning, I'm seriously so excited for it. It's just fun sometimes to ponder on a more negatively creative outcome. It's just a laugh, innit? Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I'll catch you all in the next one.